Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into your weekly dose of college football, week number 10 edition. Before I kick this off, I do want to say something really bad is going to be happening to me probably right after Thanksgiving, maybe early December. So that's why I'm not shaving. I'm not cutting my hair at all. If you guys are wondering, that's just why. But guys, I love doing these weekly dose videos. They're so fun. So first thing I saw, this is what happens when you let an SEC fan fill out a playoff prediction. You've got Kentucky. I mean, what is going on? I believe this is before Kentucky lost on Saturday. I don't think that makes it any less egregious. I mean, what are you doing having Kentucky in the playoff, even if they had won on Saturday? That's hilarious. 3 SEC teams there. Not ranked by the playoff committee, but ranked by the AP. So an interesting trend here with the group of 5 teams getting basically zero respect from the committee. I for sure thought UTSA was going to be ranked, even if it was like 24th. I thought one of Houston or SMU would have been ranked, not both. I definitely thought Coastal Carolina would have been ranked. And Louisiana has kind of been turning around their season, but I understand keeping them out. But just zero respect for the group of 5 teams. The big surprise on the team that was actually ranked was Minnesota, coming in at number 20. I get they only have 2 losses. One of them was to Ohio State. But you lose to Bowling Green. You really have no impressive wins. We'll have to see. Minnesota right now, if they win out, they control their own destiny. They can go to the Big Ten Championship game, which I would love. I love getting new blood into the Big Ten Championship game. The last 4 years we've had Wisconsin, then Northwestern, then Wisconsin, then Northwestern. Is it going to be Wisconsin again? The Big Ten does not need Wisconsin going back to the Big Ten Championship game. It would be good for the conference if Minnesota made it. I don't think they will, though. I know they play at Iowa in a few weeks. They might drop that one. So these are just interesting spreads overall. Projected college football playoff semifinal spreads based on how the rankings went last night. So the 1v4 matchup, Georgia, 17.5 point favorites over Oregon. That really doesn't surprise me. And then Alabama, 18.5 point favorites over Michigan State. That doesn't surprise me either. Here are some other interesting spreads for Cincinnati in specific. They would be 5.5 point favorites over Michigan State, 3 point favorites over Oregon, 9 point underdogs versus Ohio State, Pick'em versus Michigan, and then 2.5 point underdogs versus Oklahoma. Those theoretical rankings, it's always interesting to see how Vegas favors teams, things like that. Just some overall rankings there. This is an interesting graph where each college football playoff champion was ranked in the initial poll. So as you can see, most teams ranked second or fourth. Alabama last year, the first number 1 overall team to be ranked initially to end up winning it. And then you had Ohio State as the outlier from 2014. And just some quick housekeeping here. Drake London, expected to be a first-round pick, officially out for the year with a fractured ankle. That's a big loss for USC. But overall, for Drake London, these are pretty much meaningless games. He already proved, what he needed to prove in the 8 games he played. He's probably a lock to be a first-round pick. I liken Drake London's game to Allen Robinson. I like that. Maybe even a Mike Evans comparison. That's what I see out of Drake London. Should be a first-round pick, top 20 pick in the NFL draft. Gary Patterson, this was a surprising one, steps down as head coach of TCU. What was he there for 21 years? I thought it would be kind of a situation where at the end of the year, one of the end of the seasons, they would part ways. Middle of the season, the fact that it happened in the middle of the season is a little bit surprising. Worst game day atmosphere in every state. Really, I just wanted to show this to see if I could name some of these logos. So Seattle, that's the Seattle Kraken. That's the new NHL team. Portland, that's Portland State in Oregon. Phoenix Suns, really. Rice University in Texas. I know some of these logos. Northwest, I can't disagree with Northwestern, honestly. Kennesaw State, I believe that's in Georgia. That's what logo that is. Ohio is Youngstown State. Michigan is the Detroit Lions. So there's some interesting stuff there. I just wanted to see the different logos and stuff. I really like logos. I find them very fascinating. What direction every team is heading into. So we've got the Dynasty Tier, which is Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State. Yeah, the only question mark there would probably be Georgia. But I'll tell you guys, with Georgia's recruiting base, the state of Georgia is one of the 3 or 4 at least most talented states when it comes to college football recruits in the country. So that is a massive advantage for Georgia, and why I would definitely at this point put them on the Dynasty tier. The elite talent they're getting every single year, and it's not just like, oh, top 10 recruiting classes. No, they're getting minimum top 3 recruiting classes every year. After a while, compiling all that talent will eventually pay dividends, and we're seeing it this year with how dominant that defense is. Alabama and Ohio State have been 2 mainstays, the elite tier. Maybe Oklahoma fans would try and argue that they're in the Dynasty tier, but you got to at least win 1 college football playoff game. Cincinnati already being on that elite tier is pretty crazy. What will Luke Fickell do? And Cincinnati's going to have to replace a lot of guys, including Desmond Ridder. How will they be next year? Will they be able to sustain that high level of success to where they're the major group of 5 team that's in the playoff discussion for the next 2 or 3 years? That was UCF for the past 2 or 3 years. We'll see if Cincinnati, how long their reign as kind of the best group of 5 team. Obviously, that's going to change with them transitioning into the Big 12. And when that happens, I think by the time they transition into the Big 12, we will be having a 12-team playoff. That's another video for another day. I will be making why I think we should go to a 12-team playoff. That video probably tomorrow or maybe Friday, depending on the day. But on the come up, Michigan, I don't know. Is Michigan on the come up? Michigan's a weird program right now with Harbaugh and where they're really at. They're having a good year, no doubt. Ole Miss, I don't see it. Lane Kiffin stays at jobs for like 2 years. Wake Forest, yes, Wake Forest is a good-looking team. Kentucky, maybe. Texas A&M, I agree with. Texas A&M is really starting to recruit well, and the results are starting to show on the field. On the decline, Clemson, definitely this year, but Clemson recruits well enough. And the ACC is also bad enough. I think they'll be all right. Indiana, when were they good? Last year, I guess. I wouldn't even say they were, there's not much to decline with them. Washington, yes, Washington is on the decline. USC, they've been bad for a while now. Florida, Dan Mullen, the question mark with Dan Mullen. Why doesn't he just go to the NFL? If I'm Florida, we heard a quote from Dan Mullen the other day saying he's not interested in recruiting in season. It's like, dude, you got to be recruiting 365 days of the year, man. Unless you have like a national championship or something like that. You got to be recruiting. That's what you got to do. And he just seems like he's over the whole college thing. If I'm a Florida fan, you almost want him to move on from Dan Mullen at this point. You take a look at how their season's gone. And then the bottom feeders, I think that's kind of a low blow at Northwestern. They've made the Big Ten championship, 2 of the past 4 years. Just randomly, South Carolina's been bad for a while. Texas Tech. Texas Tech did have Patrick Mahomes, right? That's their claim to fame at this point. Week 9 takeaways. Walker is a Heisman lock right now. I guess I do agree. If the season ended today, Kenneth Walker would win the Heisman. The problem is we're going into Week 10, so I don't really understand that take. Auburn has a shot at the SEC West, until they face Alabama. Notre Dame, hard to see them losing again. I disagree with that. They were talking about that last night on the committee show about how Notre Dame's going to win out and it's going to make Cincinnati's, resume look better because that's their big win. I think Notre Dame loses to Virginia. Look it up, folks. That's a game I think Virginia will beat Notre Dame. Wake Forest, good luck stopping their offense. Well, ACC defenses, ACC is just not a good conference, so I don't know if anyone from that conference will be able to. Iowa, not even a top 5 Big Ten team. Yeah, they're not. They're really not. If you think about Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Wisconsin even, I don't think they're a top 5 Big Ten team at this point. They were literally, Iowa, 3 weeks ago, ranked number 2 in the nation. Now they're not a top 5 team in their own conference. I love college football. It's amazing. Texas will be lucky to make a bowl. No, they've got a new exception now to where 5 and 7 teams make a bowl. As long as they get to 5 wins, I think Texas, they'll get in a bowl. I'm one of those people. I'm the silent majority. We need more bowl games, not less. The silent majority, guys. We want more bowl games. You hear all these people saying, there's too many bowl games. That is a minority group of people that are very loud and obnoxious. The silent majority of us, we want more bowl games. I want to see UMass in a bowl game, things like that. But we're just not loud about it. So that's why everyone thinks, oh, there's too many bowl games. No. We want more bowl games. Most people want that. Odds to win the national title. So these are the updated odds for going into Week 10. Georgia, I wouldn't bet that. Plus 110, that's just not good value. Bama plus 260 is decent value, but I never thought Bama was going to repeat this year. Ohio State plus 550, and then you've got, those are really the three main teams up there. Oklahoma plus 1200 doesn't surprise me because their ceiling is still very high. Cincinnati plus 3,000. Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State's probably going to end the regular season with 2 losses. Ohio State and maybe even Penn State. They also have a tough game in West Lafayette this week against Purdue. And then there's Oregon and Michigan. Week 9 Big Ten power rankings. This is a list I do disagree with. I would have Ohio State first. You're talking about power rankings. That's your opinion invoking into the rankings. If you're talking about overall season accomplishments, Michigan State definitely should be ahead of Ohio State in that category. But if you're just talking about power rankings, who do you think is the best team? Ohio State, at least according to me, should be number 1. And I don't want to say this, but maybe I'd put Michigan number 2. And then people say, oh, you don't care about head-to-head. No, but let's remember something. Michigan outgained Michigan State by about 100 yards. They were ahead for most of that game, and it was being played in East Lansing. If that game's on a neutral field or in Ann Arbor, maybe a different outcome happens. But if I'm doing power rankings, I would have Ohio State first. I mean, I don't want to, maybe Michigan second. I know people would hate that because Michigan State just beat them, but I'm saying power rankings, Minnesota seems way too high. Yeah, I'd put Penn State over Minnesota. I'd put Wisconsin over Minnesota as well. And then when you look at the bottom of that list, Indiana has been horrific this year. Indiana probably is the worst team in the Big Ten. Illinois, clear cut, was definitely the worst team in the Big Ten until they somehow beat Penn State. But why is Illinois over Nebraska? I guess because they beat them in week 0. You're gonna I would put Nebraska over Illinois. I don't understand that. Think about it. Think about this for a second. Ohio State plays Nebraska this week. They're 15-point favorites. Imagine the spread if they faced Illinois. It would be like 27 or 28. Nebraska is better than Illinois. I know week 0, Illinois beat them, whatever. This, to me, just shows you how horrific the ACC is this year. You've got Wake Forest at number 1. These are power rankings. Wake Forest number 1. NC State is the number 2 team in that conference. You know what really hurt the ACC? Pittsburgh's loss to Miami last week. That really hurt their conference. Clemson at 4. Virginia has a really good offense. Not a good defense, but they're still a fun team. Miami at 6. Miami's gotten a few big wins recently. Yeah, the last 2 weeks, Miami's beaten NC State and Pittsburgh. Those are 2 big wins. But that conference is so horrific. Oh, my goodness. This is a situation, I've never seen something like this. Former USC coach Clay Helton will be the new Georgia Southern coach. So you've got a head coach fired mid-season, then gets rehired that same mid-season. I never seen something like that. It's very interesting. So this is a really unique fact here. Clemson was one of 3 teams, along with Bama and Ohio State, that had been in the top 25 of all 42 rankings by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee in the past 7 years. That streak ended Tuesday night. As you can see, College Football Playoff leaderboard, most appearances all time. So that's out of 43 polls they've done. Alabama's been ranked every single time they've done a poll, and so has Ohio State. Clemson's missed once, as we just saw. Another crazy fact about Nebraska losing close games here. Nebraska's 28-23 loss to Purdue Saturday was an NCAA high 18th one-possession game defeat since Scott Frost became Nebraska's coach in 2018. Frost is 5-18 in games decided by 8 points or less at Nebraska, including 0-6 this year. And that's why you're really seeing the variance with Nebraska. I believe they're 29th in FPI right now, but their record is terrible. It's because they lose a lot of close games, and the FPI is not going to punish you terribly for losing a close game, especially if it's to a good team. Like if Nebraska lost by 7 points this weekend to Ohio State, yeah, it's another loss, but that would actually look favorably in terms of the analytical data because it was a close loss to a really good team, if that makes any sense. Heisman categories, you've got the current favorite, Kenneth Walker, I agree. Bryce Young in second, yep. This was honestly done to just troll me. Matt Corral as a contender. How many times do I got to say this? Matt Corral, last 4 games, 5 total touchdown passes. I don't know. How is he a contender? At this point, Matt Corral is not a contender, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Corral is not going to New York. I'm sick of seeing him on these Heisman lists. Oh, my goodness. They also had Caleb Williams listed as the fan favorite. I do not think people do not like Caleb Williams, man. Caleb Williams, people think Caleb Williams shouldn't be anywhere near the Heisman because he, didn't start until week 5. I don't see him as the fan favorite at all. Here are some current updated bowl projections. Cotton Bowl, so this would be 1v4, Ohio State and Georgia. The Sugar Bowl, the 2v3 matchup, Alabama and Baylor. So they think Baylor, a one-loss Baylor, is going to make it to the playoff. That's an interesting one. Peach Bowl, A&M, Wake Forest. I'm not interested in that. Outback Bowl, Auburn, Wisconsin. I like Wisconsin to win that game, honestly. Citrus Bowl, Kentucky, Minnesota. And then what is that? The Texas Bowl. They got all these. What is that? The freaking Texas Bowl. Arkansas and Kansas. Why would they That's a weird one to predict, right? Just randomly Arkansas and Kansas State. Look at this game was amazing. So here's a screenshot at half. 42-38. Both quarterbacks had 280 passing yards. At halftime, they were on pace. You're on pace for like 560 passing yards at that point, if my math's correct. Just a crazy game. Imagine if that game would have ended like 84-78 in regulation. Everyone talks about that LSU. I think it was LSU Texas A&M game that ended, was it 74-72? Everyone talks about that, and I'm just like, dude, they went to like 8 overtimes. You can't count that as a really that high scoring game. That's ridiculous, folks. 8 overtimes, you score that many points. Come on. That's a little bit of a sham. I think that was Joe Burrow's first year with LSU before he became the Heisman quarterback and everything. Like he started a previous year. Yeah, I think so. That was the year LSU beat UCF in one of the New Year's Six games. I remember that Joe Burrow, he threw a pick 6 early on, but then came back and just played really well. And that was like the kickstarter to the next year. And then LSU went on that crazy run. Oh my goodness. How about LSU this year? LSU Saturday, 28.5-point underdogs to Alabama. And I think Bama covers. That's crazy. It's crazy. How fast do these programs fall off at LSU? Clemson, maybe. It'll be interesting. Can Clemson right the ship? Do you have one bad year? Can you get back on track? We haven't seen that one bad year recently with Ohio State, with Alabama. Even in their bad years, they only lose like 2 games at most. Clemson, it'll be interesting how many losses they end up and if they're able to right the ship next year. They certainly have the recruiting to do it, although that offense looks broken. You put any quarterback in that offense, I don't think they play well. But guys, that is going to do it for this edition of your weekly dose of college football. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.